going to have a Siyyum on Tractate Gittin. Gittin is the tractate that discusses divorce laws, the get, and all of the everything that has to do with the get, all the conditions and all the parameters, and how you make it, and how you give it, and how you're allowed to send it, etc., etc. The very last Mishnah, it's a hefty. It's not a hefty, but it's a 90-page Masechta, and the last Mishnah is a very famous machloket between Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel. Bet Shammai says that a person is not allowed to divorce his wife unless he found that she did something wrong, that she really was not faithful, or she really deserved. They deserve to separate. Bet Hillel are much more lenient and say that even if there is unreconcilable differences, he doesn't like the way she cooks, it's a good enough reason to divorce. So that is the Mishnah. Rabbi Akiva says that even more lenient, that if he found some other candidate which he feels is better, is enough of a reason to have a divorce. The Gemara is later on mentioning that there is a similar machloket between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yochanan, and that machloket is stating a verse in Malachi. Malachi was one of the so-called minor prophets, the Treasa, the last one of them. And he discusses, he operated at the end of the exile, to the Babylonian exile. And he discusses the fact that the reason we went to exile is because it was sort of a divorce between us and God, that we didn't keep our end of the deal, and therefore God so-called divorced us and sent us to exile, and therefore we should understand to straighten our ways, and with that, God will take us back. So there is a verse over there that says, Kisaneh Shalach, that if you hate it describes the relationship between us and God, as He is the groom and we're the bride, and it says that because He hated what we did, so He sent us. That's one interpretation. Another interpretation is that he who is performing a divorce is hated, meaning that when someone is divorcing his spouse, God is really examining the reasoning behind it and frowning upon this practice. And so the Gemara is saying, and the truth is that there is no difference, there is no disagreement between the two, because one of them is saying that it's okay to have a divorce, and another one is saying that it's really not okay. And the Gemara is answering that, is suggesting that the way to keep them both correct is when someone is talking about the first marriage. The first marriage is his youth match, Eshet Neurav. That is something that someone should really be very, very careful with. And if they end up getting a divorce, it's not really liked by. It's not a suggested practice. However, any other marriage thereafter, it's a little more lenient, and people are they're not being questioned as much if they do divorce. That is how the Gemara is putting together that basically they're both right. It's just that each one is talking about different marriage. And then the Gemara is finishing. The Amar Rabbi Eliezer, Kol HaMegaresh Ishto HaRishona, Afilu Mizbach Moril Alav Dma'ot. He who is divorcing his first wife, the altar is crying on the altar is crying on that event that a divorce occurred. And he's quoting again another pasuk, another verse from Malachi, from the same, two verses earlier. It says, "V'zot sheni ta'asu," and that pasuk is describing the fact that we did the wrong thing in the eyes of God, and that caused God to divorce us. And then ksu dima et mizbach Hashem b'chi v'anaka, that basically the altar was crying that God is not happy anymore. The altar is crying because when we don't have a relationship with God, we can't bring the korban, and if we do bring the korban, God is not interested in taking it from us, and therefore the altar is going to remain empty, not used, and the altar is going to cry. Ve'amartem al ma ki Hashem העיד בינך ובין אשת נעוריך אשר אתה בגדת בה והיא חברתך ואשת בריתך. And the prophet Malachi proceeds to explain that the reason for it is because we are God's first marriage, and when we did not keep faithful to God, we basically bagadnu. It's a form of treason. And that's the reason for all the mess. So that is the basic end of the Masechta. I just wanted to point out a couple of things from the Lubavitcher Rebbe about this Masechta. Every year he would finish several of them, but he would talk at least once a year in public and do a Siyyum. And there is he was operating for 42 years, so we have a lot of those Siyyumim, and almost on every Masechta a couple of times. So what he said about Masechet Gittin is something very interesting. That Masechet Gittin is, the Tractate is talking about how to divorce. But the very last section is talking about you shouldn't divorce. And it's frowned upon to divorce. And it's not recommended. And the altar is crying. And God forbid, try to avoid it as much as possible. And it's known that the beginning and the end of every tractate is connected. So if we flip the page all the way back to the beginning of the tractate, we see that the beginning of the tractate, one would think that the tractate would start with the major ideas behind, major laws behind this whole event of this whole contractual event of the transaction of giving a get. What does the get look like? What does it need to say? How is it being given? There are many rules and many aspects of get. But the very first Mishnah is very oddly talking about something so far out that is not common. If the husband is overseas and the wife is obviously on the other side of the sea, and he wants to divorce her, so he needs to send the get through someone. And when he sends the get through someone, what is that someone supposed to say, and how is supposed to testify that the get is really a valid one, which sort of is odd. I mean, that's what you found to start the Masechta. That's the most important thing in the Masechta. That doesn't make sense. So, and the third thing that seems to be interesting is that the sequence of the tractates is such that Gittin comes first, and then Kiddushin. I mean, usually people give a get after they get married, right? So why is Kiddushin not coming before Gittin? So to answer all of that, the Rebbe said something very interesting that we all know, that in Matan Torah and Shavuos, when we got the Torah, we basically married God. That was the marriage between God and us. And that is God's first marriage, and obviously ours first marriage. And this is it's a bond that's really unbreakable. And there is one of the laws that if a husband needs to give a get, the get cannot stay. The contract, the actual piece of paper parchment cannot stay in his possession. He has to give it to the wife, to the spouse, and make sure that it's in her under her possession totally. He cannot put it on the desk in his home in front of her, so, because the desk is his property, and give it to her. She needs to hold it. She needs to take it. It needs to be hers. And the thing is that there is nowhere in the world that God is not that God doesn't own. So he basically cannot give us a get, because he cannot transfer the authority over that spot to someone else, because he's everywhere. God is here, God is there, God is everywhere, right? So he cannot basically divorce us. And the whole idea of divorce is something that's very, very frowned upon between us and God, obviously, as well as between, and as a result of that, in the world as well. And it starts the tractate when that it says that the husband is in overseas, which comes to tell us that there is a time that the husband, God, is overseas, which is the time of galut, the time of exile. Now, usually it's very difficult when, in the past few years, when we're sitting in Livingston and enjoying the beautiful goodness of this country, it's very difficult to feel that it's exile. But now, this year, God put us in a situation where we all feel exiled. We're all doing our Seder alone. We're not together. We're not allowed to be together. And but we have to know. We have to know that we never divorced, that we're never alone, that we never separated, that it cannot be, that even if God wants to give us a get, it's sort of technically he can't. And he doesn't want to, and he never will. And as long as we're figuring that point out and doing the right thing, there will be right away, right after that failed attempt to give us a get, there will be afterwards a kiddushin. That's why the Masechta kiddushin is coming right after that, because this is what we need to stress. We need to stress the togetherness. We need to stress how we are holy. Kiddushin is from the word kadosh. Asher baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu baruch Asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav. That during Matan Torah, God made us holy. God made us His spouse, and that holy matrimony is forever. That bond is forever going to be kept. And God willing, soon enough, even before my father called me and says, "I want to ruin your Seder. I hope that you'll have to scramble somehow to get to the cloud, to get to Yerushalayim, to be with all of us together with Mashiach." So instead of saying L'shana Haba b'Yerushalayim Abnuya at the end of the Seder, let's say L'shana Azot this year will be b'Yerushalayim Abnuya all together, and may be so speedily in our time. Hadran. Now I'm not going to say the Kaddish. I'm just going to say all the other Hadran words, and then hopefully you all have your lechaim and some piece of mezainas, cake, this is chometz, to say bracha, so you can join together, and we'll have a party together, a sudat mitzvah, and with that, hopefully we'll be able to dance lechaim with all of us with the building of Mashiach. Hadran alach hamgaresh v'selig Masechet Gittin. Hadran alach Masechet Gittin v'adran alach datan. Alach Masechet Gittin v'adran alach lo tshini minyan Masechet Gittin lo tshini minyan lo ba'al madati v'adin v'lo ba'al madati. Hadran alach Masechet Gittin v'adran alach datan. דתן לך מסר גיטין ודתן לך לא תשאיר מסר גיטין ולא תשאיר מנין ולא בעל מדין ולא בעל מעטי עד לך מסר גיטין ודתן לך דתן מסר גיטין ודתן לך לא נשאר מדי מה לסר גיטין ולא נשאר מדי לא בעל מדין ולא בעל מדעתי יוצא מפתח עלינו ואותנו שאת עוד חרם נתנו בעולם הזה ותהיה עמנו לעולם הבא אחרים ופאפה רם ופאפה רך ופאפה רך ופאפה אמור ופאפה רב אף ופאפה רך יש ופאפה אסור ופאפה עד ופאפה דר ופאפה. By the way, we're mentioning all these papas. This is 10 kids of the same guy, Mr. Papa. He had 10 kids, and they all were good kids. And I think we're mentioning it this year especially because we're all going to be only with our kids, hopefully. And we should enjoy our kids. We don't need, we don't need people that are not our nuclear family to celebrate. הרב נתנה אלינו לאבותינו ופינו פיות עמך בית ישראל בניין, אנחנו מצטערים צטערים עמך בית ישראל כולם, ויש מאחד בולבית חכמי אמצעותך כאילו לעם הילי. יהי ליבי תמים, וכותב אמן לעבוד של עולם, לא ישכח בקדח בם חייתנו ברוך תנו נאי, למדך וחוקך אמן 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 סלו, ועד מודים אנחנו לבתנו, ששם חלקנו בשמי בית המדרס, ולא שם חלקנו בשמי כהונת, שאנחנו משכימים, אנו מסכימים לדברי תורה, אנו מסכימים לדברים פתולים, אנו מולים קודמים שכר, והם מולים אינם קודמים שכר, אנו רצים לחיי עולם בא, ואנו רצים לבאר שחר של מאהבתי, אלוהים תורדם לבאר שחר למיר ומעל יום רצויים אליהם, ואני אפתח בך, ירצה לפניך נאי כשם שעזרתנו לסיים מסכת גיטין, כן תעזרנו להתחיל מסכתות וספרים אחרים ולסמם וללמוד ללמד, לשמור לעשות לקיים כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה, וזכות כל התנאים והאמוראים ותלמידי חכמים יעמוד לי ולזרי שלא תמוש שהתורה מפי זרי וזרע זרי עד עולם, ויתקיים בי ביטלך ותנחה אותך בשבועך תשמור עליך ובקצות ותשיחך, כי בי ירבו ימיך ושיבו לך שנות חיים, אורך ימי בימונה בשמונה של כבוד, אדוני שלום ייתן נאי יברך תמו בשלום. ברוך אתה נאי לנו לכל עולם, שאפני בדבורי. L'chaim everybody. Thank you for joining us. More than 60 people. It's amazing. Thank you. You should all have a Chag Sameach. Should all have Chag Sameach, Chag Kosher v'Sameach, and enjoy all of your bar papas, you know. Kol Tuv.
Everybody should eat.
Yeah, you should all participate. You should all eat something.
You have to drink up all of the chametz. Drink up all of the chametz. Don't leave anything. For next. Sure.